Welcome back to InstaPhippsyFishing. Today I'm going to be telling you the story of how this turned into this. So let me start from the beginning. I actually wrote down the chronological order of events. Hopefully I said that word right. It sounded weird when it came out. But the order of events by date. Last winter, when I went to put my boat away for the season, I took the boat deck and floor out, completely emptied the john boat, and then I stored the john boat and trailer under my porch with the boat cover over it. So to start the season in early May, I took the john boat and trailer out from under the porch and put it in the driveway so I could start working on it. On May 7th, my girlfriend and I cleaned the entire outside of the boat with a special aluminum boat cleaner that I ordered off Amazon. And then later that day, I also took my car in to get a trailer hitch installed on it so that I could tow my john boat around. So all season, I used my Elantra to tow my boat and trailer. Turned out okay. I had to order a 4-inch raised receiver and hitch because my car sat lower than the boat trailer. So when I connected them, there was kind of like a negative inverted angle. So I needed the 4-inch raised hitch and receiver so that I could tow my trailer at almost an even angle. Then if you saw my last video of me installing the styrofoam and cleaning the carpets and the boat deck, that was filmed on May 18th. So the last video that I dropped last week was filmed May 18th. And then Friday, May 20th, the pike and walleye season opened. And that's when I spent either 12 or 14 days fishing for that KCKF kayak pike tournament. So I was busy from May 20th to June 4th fishing out of the kayak, so I didn't work on my boat at all. Originally, I planned on doing everything to the boat myself. Because I took everything out, I pretty much had to start from scratch for the year. So I planned on cleaning everything, making a few improvements, a few adjustments, but I just started running out of time because I didn't expect to spend 2 weeks straight fishing out of a kayak and not working on the boat. Actually, a reason I had been delaying putting the boat deck back in is when I took the boat out of storage in May and started to clean the boat and work on cleaning the floor and stuff like that, I noticed that some rivets had popped out of my front bench seat support. I didn't know how to fix it. I had never worked with rivets before. I think the problem was one of my 2x2s in the boat deck support frame was resting right on the edge of this plate. And then just the pressure from that probably made these rivets pop out. Also, when I fish, I spend most of the time standing right around the front middle, so all of my weight would have been here most of the season. So that was the only issue with my boat, was that these rivets popped out. So what I did is I actually posted on a local Facebook boat group asking if anyone knew how to fix this or what to do. And a guy messaged me saying that he could fix it. So I brought my john boat and trailer to him, dropped it off, and he fixed this front support for me, and I think it looks great. So that was on June 6th that I dropped my boat off. He fixed it the same day. I picked it up again June 6th. And then one of the things that he noticed was that my winch strap was fraying and looked like it was about to break. So he told me to keep an eye on that. And then 6 days later, on June 6th, the trailer winch strap broke. So on June 12th, I go back to this guy. He's about 15-20 minutes away, so not terrible. This time I only had to drop off the strap. Again, he fixed it same day. I came back, picked up the strap. He has a really big farm property with a few barns and garages and sheds and stuff that he works out of. And he charged a very reasonable rate for all the work that was being done. Again, I planned on doing most of this myself and filming it and making a great update video for you guys. But I had a tournament scheduled for Saturday, June 18th, bass season opener. So I had limited time and quite the time crunch. And again, I didn't know how to do most of this stuff, so I would have to research and really take my time doing it. So the next day after I picked up the trailer winch strap, so June 13th, I needed help with my batteries and electrical wiring. what I had been doing last year is I would use one battery for the trolling motor, and then once it died, I would take that one out and put a second battery in. So I was physically like detaching the trolling motor from the battery, moving that battery somewhere else in the boat, getting the fresh battery, putting it there, and then reattaching everything. So I was doing that during tournaments. Probably only took like 10-15 minutes, but it was still an annoyance. So what I wanted was to have both batteries and the trolling motor connected to both so that the trolling motor would last twice as long. So rather than battery A being 4 hours and battery B being 4 hours, connect them together to have them run about 8 hours. I get a little hesitant when it comes to wiring just because I really don't know anything about it, and sometimes it can be dangerous. So June 13th, I take the boat and trailer back to his place and drop it off there for him to do the wiring. Again, he does a great job, charges a fair rate, and I pick the boat and trailer back up and bring it home. So in a week, I've gone back and forth to his place 3 times. And now it's June 13th and I only have 5 days until the tournament. Then on June 14th, I decided to take the boat and trailer back again for the 4th time. And this is what I should have done from the start, is just drop it off and have him do everything. But now that's what I've done on June 14th, only leaving him like 3 days to get me the boat back so I can have it Friday night for the tournament Saturday morning. So what he did for me is he added some support under the front bench where those rivets had popped out, just in case the front bench itself was bowing from my weight of standing on it. I figured it would be good to have some vertical supports under there, so he added that for me, which you can see in this shot here. And over the winter, I had actually purchased a new bow mount trolling motor as well, because what I was using last year was a transom mount trolling motor that I had spun the head around and just attached it to the front of my boat using some scrap 2x4s and 2x6s and stuff like that. And I attached a PVC handle to the trolling motor and I would steer with it kind of between my knees. But then when I would catch a fish, I would have to use one hand to turn the trolling motor off, and sometimes I would lose fish doing that. So I really wanted a bow mount trolling motor, and I got an amazing deal from Bass Pro on this trolling motor. I had filmed an unboxing because, again, I was going to mount this myself and show you guys how to do it. Even though I didn't know how to do it, I was going to learn first and then make a video of how to do it. So I had him attach that for me. And then because the trolling motor was going to be on the front lip of my boat, I had him add some support under there as well, just because I didn't want any damage to the aluminum frame of the boat. Then when I got back from his place on June 14th, I realized that I also hadn't reattached my boat trailer guideposts, which I did a DIY video of that last year, so make sure you check that out. So then the next morning, June 15th, I went and dropped those off for him to reattach. And then he was done by Thursday afternoon on June 16th. So in the afternoon, I went and picked up the finished boat. So I went to his place June 6th, and then 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's not his fault, that's my fault, because I wanted to do everything myself and film a video for you guys, but I didn't do any of it, and I didn't film a video, and I did all that driving back and forth, which was just silly. I should have dropped it off and had him do everything, but I didn't know for sure that he would be willing and knew how to do everything, because he did electrical, he did woodwork, he did aluminum work, he did riveting, like he did it all. And again, he charged me a fair price, which was awesome. So I'm very thankful that he got me the boat back. I asked for him to have it done by Friday evening, the 17th, and he had it done by Thursday afternoon, the 16th, which was amazing. So again, this was all to prepare for the tournament Saturday, June 18th, Bass season opener. And then Thursday night at about 10 p.m., the tournament was canceled due to wind. So unfortunately, the wind forecast was terrible for Saturday. It was showing winds of 50 kilometers per hour or more. And in a John boat with a 15 horsepower motor, wind is my worst nightmare. So I don't know if you guys remember my first ever tournament. I think the winds were only like 20 kilometers per hour and we had an absolute nightmare. So make sure you watch that video. That video is called Bass Tournament Disaster, My Worst Day Ever on the Water. And I think that still holds true, that this was my worst day ever on the water. And again, that day from the video, the wind was only 20 kilometers per hour. So Saturday was forecasting 50 kilometers per hour. So I wasn't even thinking of fishing the tournament anymore. So once I saw that forecast Thursday at about 9 p.m., I messaged the tournament director, said, hey, I'm out. You know, can I get a refund of my tournament entry fee? And then at 10 or 10:30 p.m. that night, they actually decided to cancel the whole tournament due to wind, which I'm glad, because I didn't want to have to be the guy to drop out, even though I was willing to be. They ended up rescheduling the whole thing for maybe like a month later, which I was thankful for. So I didn't ask for a refund. I said, hey, just keep it and I'll come fish the tournament next month. So since the tournament was canceled, I didn't do anything with the boat on Friday. And then Saturday was just as windy as advertised. It was insane. So again, didn't do any fishing then. And then Sunday the 19th was fairly calm. I guess this windstorm had passed through. So I decided to launch my boat for the first time of the year on the 19th. In my zone where I live and where I launched the boat, bass season wasn't open yet. The tournament was going to be in another zone in Ontario where bass season opens a week earlier. So I don't remember on the 19th if I did any fishing. If I did, it would have been for walleye or pike. I think I mainly just practiced using the new bow mount trolling motor because I had never used one before. So I wanted to get used to using that. And then I ended up having an issue with the trolling motor where when I deployed it, it wouldn't lock into place. It turns out it was because the bolts were sticking up a little bit. So I actually had to take the trolling motor off, remove the spacers that were used, and then drop the bolts down flush, and then it locked into place. So I think I did that on Sunday evening or maybe Monday morning. I fixed that issue. Just a quick disclaimer, a lot of this footage is shot in like vertical phone mode. Actually, a lot of this footage is just Snapchats and stuff like that. Because at the time, I didn't think I would make a video about it because I was extremely upset and angry. And I just didn't even want to think about turning all this misfortune into a video. But I am glad I'm updating you guys about it now. Because you might as well know everything that goes on behind the scenes. From the video I posted last week, in my mind, at the time, I was just going to go straight to this kayak bass fishing tournament on the Saturday. But then as I was editing the video last week, I'm like, no, I need to tell this story. So I gathered all the footage I could from Snapchat and stuff like that. So yeah, just a disclaimer, some of the footage you're going to see is shot in vertical phone mode. So it'll just be my face here and then that vertical stuff there. Then Monday night, the 20th, there was a ton of rain. So it rained all Monday night and part of Tuesday morning. So once the rain stopped, I went out a few hours later to check on the boat and it was fairly full of water. The boat cover was touching the floor of the boat and that whole section was filled with water. All of the rain that was sitting in the boat cover was weighing it down and it was sitting a little low in the water. So once I bailed it, the boat was floating a lot better. So boat has been bailed at 3:53 p.m. Then my girlfriend got home from work around 5 and I wanted to show her the boat and tell her like how low it was sitting and how I bailed the boat. So at 5:16 p.m., her and I walk up to the edge of the property. So my property is raised above the river and then it drops down like 10 or 12 feet. And then that's where the water is. There's like a beach down there. I'm kind of up on a retaining wall or something like that. So we walk to the edge of the retaining wall to look over so I can tell her the story of the boat sitting low. So if my math is correct, this is an hour and 23 minutes after I bailed the boat of rain. There's no more rain. And this is what we walk up to. That's tough to watch back. So her and I are just standing there looking at the boat like, what do we do? My boat has sunk and is sitting on the bottom of the river, luckily in only like 2-3 feet of water, and waves are just crashing over it. I'm watching the clip again and I'm still just stunned. Like I couldn't believe my eyes because I had just bailed the boat. So I get my hip waders on, I grab a big bucket, I grab my bilge pump and battery and I run down there. I bailed and I bailed and ran the bilge for like 45 minutes. And as you can see, like more water's coming in than is going out. So after a while, I realized this wasn't working, threw my phone up to my girlfriend and said, hey, at least get a video of this so I can show it one day once I've healed. And now watching it back, I don't think I was ready. Tried to bail for 45 minutes, no dice, more water coming in than going out. So I had to wait for the wind and waves to die down. Like the boat was so heavy at that point. It was probably like thousands of pounds because of all the water in there. I couldn't budget, couldn't do anything. So what we did is I just tried to get everything out of the boat that I could. I got my rods and reels out. Most of them ended up being damaged because the water was so turbulent that it was bringing sand and sludge over the side of the boat and into it. So all that sand and sludge got into my reels. It got into all my lures and tackle. My batteries were still in the boat and they were actually charging at that time. So I was worried I was going to get like electrocuted because there was an extension cord into my battery charger connected to my batteries. So I got that disconnected, got that out. My brand new trolling motor, which had only been on the boat for like 2 days and had only been used once for like 15-20 minutes, was getting splashed. So I ended up disconnecting the trolling motor again, which I had just reattached the day before. Got that off, took the boat deck off, took all of my emergency supplies out of the boat, the gas can. I forget if I took the motor off the boat, but just anything I could get off the boat, I took off. And then I just had to sit and wait for like 2 or 3 hours while my boat is on the bottom of the river, smashing into rocks nonstop. I had to wait for the wind and waves to die down to be able to finally bail it. So luckily the wind died down just before dark. So I brought all of my bailing supplies back out, put my hip waders on again, and then bailed the boat for about half an hour before I could get it floating again. Using that big orange Home Depot bucket by hand. It's a 5-gallon bucket. And I had the bilge pump pumping as well. Still took half an hour to get all that water out of the boat. It was insane. And at this point, I'm exhausted from bailing for 45 minutes earlier to no avail. Then once the boat started finally floating again, even though it was still pretty darn heavy because the boat floor and all of the boat frame are completely waterlogged, it's still super heavy. Now, luckily, the boat launch is only 300 meters from my house. So from where the boat is floating to the boat launch, it's only 300 meters. When I was telling the story to other people, I thought it was like a kilometer because what I did is I dragged the boat over my shoulder using the anchor rope and I dragged it the 300 meters to the boat launch. It took me like 15-20 minutes. I thought it was a kilometer. It seemed a lot longer. 300 meters isn't very far. It's like 6 or 7 properties down from my house. But with the water like up to here splashing over my hip waders, like it was still fairly windy and wavy. It's not like it completely died down. It just stopped coming over the edge of the boat enough that I was able to bail it. So I'm dragging this through the water. I don't have my trolling motor on, and I'm pretty sure I don't have my outboard motor on. Or if I do, I don't have the gas tank. So I had to drag it onto the boat and trailer. I had my girlfriend drive the boat and trailer to the launch, and then I left the boat in the water for a minute. I backed the trailer in, and then I dragged the boat onto the trailer, winch it on, pull the boat plug, and let the water drain. By this time, it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's dark out. So I bring the boat and trailer back to my driveway, and I just leave it for the night. I'm exhausted. I can't deal with it anymore. I figure, wait till the light of day. It was already sitting underwater for, 4 or 5 hours. So I'm thinking like, most of the water's drained out. Whatever else is going to happen, just let it happen. I'll deal with this tomorrow. So here is the aftermath. Oh, I only took out half the deck that the trolling motor is attached to. So the worst part's not the water. It is this dirt, sand, and sludge. Like it is just, you'll see in the next scene, it's like an inch thick of this crap. I still hate seeing this. Like, luckily it's kind of a distant memory, but this was an absolute nightmare to deal with. Boat carpet just absolutely soaked. And now I have the boat floor like screwed down, so I know I have to detach it. And keep in mind, I had just spent like $400 a couple days before having this boat ready to go for tournament season, better than it's ever been. And now like 4 or 5 days later, after spending that money and having it in better shape than it's ever been, it's now in worse shape than it's ever been. So I take the boat frame out, I take the boat deck out, I take the boat floor out, and this is what it looks like under the styrofoam. Just tons and tons of sludge. So you can see as I shop vac, like how thick this layer of sludge is. It's just brutal. So then Wednesday the 22nd, Thursday the 23rd, and Friday the 25th, I spent 8 to 10 hours per day cleaning this boat. Had to take everything apart that this guy had just built for me. Basically a couple $100 of work all undone from one day of waves. I just couldn't believe it. Look how thick this sludge is. Oh my gosh. So then, yeah, get out the pressure washer and I'm pressure washing the sludge off. And then I use the wet shop vac to vacuum it. And then I used a few bottles of Dawn, I think it's called Power Wash. It's a dish soap with a spray handle. I used like three bottles of that. Power wash with the power washer again. So I have a power washer that shoots water and I have Dawn Power Wash. And then I would shop vac it again and then spray it again and then shop vac it again. I had to do each section of boat floor. I had to do each hatch lid, probably like 4 or 5 times each. And they'll still never be the same. Like you saw in my last video, I just had them super clean and beautiful. And now even though I cleaned them more thoroughly after this happened, they're not the same. Like there's still sand in there, still a slight smell, like just an absolute nightmare. So there it is after 3 days and about 24 to 30 hours of work. I've got everything detached and cleaned. And now it's time to start over again, putting things back together. So this is Friday, June 24th. The boat is clean. All the pieces are clean. I just need to reassemble it. But the next day, Saturday, June 25th, I have my first kayak bass tournament. I was almost going to drop out of this tournament because I didn't want my boat to just be sitting there basically rotting and wet and disgusting. So that's why I worked so hard to at least have it cleaned out so that it would at least be drying out and not sitting there rotting and getting worse. So I finished by sometime Friday around dinner time. So I decided, Friday night that I am going to do this tournament. I live about 3 hours from Kingston and this tournament is close to Kingston. It's like 2 hours away. And then Friday around 7 p.m. they were having, I think they call it like the captain's meeting. Just talking about the tournament rules and what to expect the next day. And Saturday was supposed to be super, super hot. So they decided instead of launching at 7 a.m., we would launch at 5 a.m. Wasn't mandatory to launch at 5, but if you wanted to, you could fish those 2 hours and get off the water 2 hours earlier. So rather than 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., the tournament was now 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. It was optional to fish from 5 to 7. But it was my first tournament and I'm extremely competitive. So I'm getting there for 5. I'm not letting people fish for 2 hours and then I have to catch up. Especially after I just went through this boat fiasco. Like, I want things to go well. I want to win. I want to set things right for my tournament season. Because so far the only tournament of the year was the pike tournament where I won big fish and got 2nd place. So I'm riding a high. I plan on just winning everything all year. So instead of leaving around 5 a.m. to get there for 7 and launch, I now have to leave around 3 a.m. to get there for 5 to launch. Which after, working on this boat, which was super hard on my body as well, I understood why they did it and I kind of liked it, but just from the week I had just had, I was also super frustrated. And then that tournament will probably be the next video you guys see. But spoiler alert, I didn't sleep. I usually don't go to bed until like midnight and then I fall asleep around 1. I tried going to bed at like 10:30, But around 2:15, I just gave up and I said, screw it, and went for it. So absolutely zero sleep that night. So fished that tournament Saturday. Then the next day, June 26th, I decided to launch the boat. I launched it empty. All I had was the outboard motor and the gas tank on it. I didn't put the floor back in, the deck back in, or anything. I just wanted to get the boat out there. I think I wanted to fish, but I don't remember offhand if I did or what I was doing. I think I probably went bass fishing because now bass season would have been opened at that point. So I take the boat back to the boat launch. I launch the boat. I go park the vehicle and trailer. I come back. Boat has sunk again. I did not put the boat plug back in the boat from when I took it out to let the boat drain out, you know, a couple days before or the week before. So boat sunk once on Tuesday the 21st, and then launching the boat again Sunday the 26th. So 5 days later, boat sinks for the second time. This time it was completely my fault. The first time we won't talk about. Partially my fault, but mainly Mother Nature just slapping me. Luckily this time there was no waves, so I was able to put the boat plug back in. I think I went home and got the bucket and then bailed the boat again. And this time, again, luckily it was just clean water coming in. If my boat filled with clean water, this wouldn't have been that bad. Basically just drain the boat and let it dry out over a few days. It was the sand and sludge that did all this damage. Like, again, most of my fishing reels, which I have some expensive ones, like $300–400, even after completely taking them apart and cleaning them, which I probably spent like 8 to 10 hours doing, they still don't work the same as they did before this accident. So basically my boat, which is only a year old, just isn't the same as it was before this incident. All of my fishing gear isn't the same. Just a terrible thing to happen and start the season with. Like, I don't want to have to buy new stuff because it's very expensive. Like, all of my rods and reels combined are probably like $3,000. I actually had to send 2 reels in to be serviced just because they were almost destroyed by the boat sinking. I had to spend over $100 to have these 2 reels serviced to get them working again. So that was extremely annoying, but also kind of funny. I'm like, wow, after my boat sinking, the first time I launch it, I sink it again. Like, what are the odds of that? But again, nice clean water. If anything, it just rinsed the soap off for me. So I'm fine with sinking it the second time. But then I had to let it dry out again before putting the styrofoam back in and the floor back in. So maybe I'm not fine with it. So I let it dry out the rest of the day, the 26th, and then most of the day, the 27th. And again, I haven't had a real fishing day out of the boat yet. Like, originally I was hoping to have the boat in the water at some point in May so that I could fish for walleye and pike, but then I got into that kayak tournament. I figured at least I could fish for something before bass season opens. But now bass season's opened and I haven't even really had my boat in the water yet. Well, I've definitely had my boat in the water. Sorry, I should have phrased that differently. I've had too much water in my boat, which is the problem. Anywho, Monday, June 27th, I decide to put everything back in. Styrofoam back in, floors back in, frame back in, deck back in, trolling motor reattached. Having a great time doing this again. I guess I could have filmed it at this point, but by now I'm too angry. Like, I can't believe it's almost the end of June. Haven't even got to fish out of my boat yet. And then I put the batteries back in. And I don't know a ton about electrical and batteries and stuff like that. The only thing I do know for sure is to connect negative to negative and positive to positive. So what do? Connect negative to positive, and start an electrical fire. So I go from sinking my boat twice to the very next day setting it on fire. Luckily, the fire didn't spread. It damaged the batteries. It damaged the electrical wiring I had just paid to have done. And it really burnt my finger. Like, holy crap, electrical burns hurt. I'm actually holding my finger again, just reliving it and seeing that picture. I don't know if you guys have ever had an electrical burn, but it just hits different. Don't recommend that. It is unpleasant. 10 out of 10 do not recommend. Luckily, my girlfriend's sister is a nurse, so we just call her up. We're like, hey, my finger was just burned and melted by electrical wiring. What do? Had to wrap a cold compress around the finger, and it was just on fire for hours. It was super unpleasant. So then I had to bring my boat back to this guy again to fix what I had just done. And then he ended up drawing a little diagram for me so that couldn't happen again. I was in a rush. I just really wanted to get the boat on the water finally. Actually, even after that electrical fire happened and my finger was on fire, I still went fishing that night. I took out the most damaged battery, and then I reconnected the trolling motor just to one. Luckily, the trolling motor wasn't connected, or else that probably would have been damaged as well. So connected the trolling motor to one battery that still kind of had some posts because some of the battery posts melted off. And I went out fishing that night. It was kind of tough because my finger was so sore, but I got some fishing done. So after sinking my boat twice and catching it on fire once, finally June 27th, I got to fish in my boat with everything working for the first time of the season. And then maybe the next day or a day or two later, my brother came to visit for a few days. And then on July 1st, I decided to take my brother and another guy fishing. So 3 guys in the boat. None of us are huge. Some of us above and some of us below 200 pounds. Let's say around a 200-pound average. Get the 15 horsepower motor running, crank it, bow of the boat, completely underwater. Huge rush and wave of water coming over the front. So I kill the motor. We're all like, what the heck was that? So they're sitting on the deck and the wave like completely soaks them. I'm like, sorry about that. That's never happened before. Crank the motor again. Boom, submarine mode. Huge wave of water comes over the front again. I'm like, I know what's happening. We're sinking it again. So we sink the boat again. Third time in, I don't know, 10, 11 days. This time I still had the motor running. So like, I guess this time it didn't technically sink. We didn't hit bottom, but we had like a foot or more of water in the boat.
It's not getting in the gas, right?
Small circle.
The pump,
yeah, small pump with black hose. It was over the boat floor up to the deck. So we were barely floating. And then we had the third guy hop out of the boat. So it was just me and my brother in there. He went and got the bilge pump and battery. So my brother and I are bailing with buckets, and then we get the bilge pump going again. Again, it's a blessing that this was clean water and not more sand and sludge. And that's the day I discovered the boat had a weight capacity. I think it said 660 pounds, which the 3 of us, you know, maybe we weighed around 600. But then the boat floor, the trolling motor, the gas tank, 2 batteries, the boat deck, all of the framing, all that stuff's probably like 300-400 pounds on its own. So I'm guessing we had around 1,000 or more pounds in there, and that's how you get your boat to go into submarine mode. So that's just a cute little life hack for you guys. Yeah, if you can't afford a submarine, just throw 1,000 pounds of men and wood into a John boat. So after having my boat completely disassembled, letting it dry out for 2 days, reassembling it and catching it on fire, sink it again, everything's soaked again. This time, I was too fed up, just decided to leave it. Once we bailed the boat, we did go fishing. My brother caught a fish for the first time in a couple of years. Him and I used to fish so much as kids, but he moved to Chicago, so hasn't been fishing as much. So it was nice to take him out, and we caught some fish after we had just sunk the boat. And then I just decided to leave it as is. Drained the boat as best I could, and then, you know, it's the start of summer. I figure maybe it'll eventually dry out, but I don't even care at this point. So you'd think that's the end. Sunk the boat 3 times and set it on fire once in about 10 days. Well, 10 days after that, I decided to go back to the scene of the crime where that horrible tournament experience happened. So that was my first time ever launching from this place, my first time ever fishing that stretch of the river. Haven't been back since that horrible experience. But I decided, you know, since I'm on such a hot streak, you know, I'm lucky, might as well head back there. It's one of the only access points to a place that has largemouth bass. I really just wanted to have a day of largemouth fishing and make a good video for you guys from that. So I go back there, I fish, I catch some largemouth, things go pretty well. So in the tournament disaster video, on the way back to the boat launch, my trolling motor fell into the water and I think one of my fishing rods broke. This time, about halfway back, my 15 horsepower motor breaks. And by breaks, I mean the crankshaft broke, which is like the main thing of the motor. So 10 days later, my 15 horsepower motor is dead. It is unusable. Luckily, I have a backup motor, but it's only a 7.5. So by July 11th, I have my 7.5 horsepower motor on. Right now it's November and that is still the motor I'm using. Can you imagine going to tournaments in a John boat with a 7.5 horsepower motor on? So unfortunately for all of tournament season, I'm using a 7.5 horse motor. So I'm not going anywhere. Basically, I'm launching my boat. Maybe I'll go 10 or 15 minutes, which probably only brings me like a kilometer. And then I'm just trolling. So I'm sticking close to boat launches. Super frustrating and upsetting. I'm hoping to get a 25 horsepower motor sometime this winter and have that ready for next season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this story type episode. I thought I needed to share all that with you guys. Hope you enjoyed it, but also like didn't enjoy it, kind of like I didn't. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, but did not enjoy that all of that happened to me. Today I'm repping my Weapons of Bass Destruction swag. I've got the hoodie and the hat on. As you guys may or may not know, this is the first fishing brand that I've ever had a deal with. So I'm part of their promotional staff for 2022. You can use my code FIPSY to save 10% off their website. They have bladed jigs, swim jigs, flipping jigs, football jigs, some soft plastics, some tungstens. So make sure you check that out. Again, use code FIPSY to save 10% there. I'll have that linked in the video description as well. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please just do it as a favor to me to help me mentally recover from that traumatic experience, and I just relived it for you guys. So make sure you're subscribing. Lots of great content coming. I think the next one I'm releasing is that kayak bass tournament, but don't hold me to it in case I'm wrong. Next time when this kind of crap happens, I'll just make sure to film it at the time. I'll try not to be as upset and angry so I'm actually able to film it at the time, but this was just too much for one man to handle. But again, hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys on the next one.